One more. Nice.
If I were to have a podcast.
If I were to have a podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of If I Were to Have a Podcast. My name is Mike Heslak.
And I'm Gerry Vincent.
And we are here with someone very special today. He climbed Mount Everest backwards.
Fascinating.
Interesting.
Really fascinating.
Interestingly fascinating.
Wow.
I couldn't even do that frontwards. Could
I
you?
feel like I could.
You probably could.
I used to be a Sherpa.
You look like a Sherpa.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyways, we are here with Mr. Dan Groom. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I am fantastic. I hope it's a little warmer in here than Everest.
Yeah, just a little bit. I will say that I did mess up my hamstring going up backwards, so I wouldn't recommend doing that.
Noted. Thank you for sharing that. We can get more into that later. But for now, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
All right. Well, I am a filmmaker. I have made a few short films and one of my own feature films. And I have also made a couple feature films for other people. So that's what I do. And you know what? It's just a hobby at this point. I don't want to consider it full-time, even though everybody's dream is to become full-time on that. But when you do things over and over again, I feel that you get tired of it. And this is something that I don't want to get tired of. So
You want to keep it a passion.
correct.
That's interesting. That's a good point and a good perspective. And I want to talk more about that at some point. But what I want to talk about
There is
now,
a pressing question that I have.
Very
to ask you.
pressing.
Very pressing.
and what is it?
Dan,
Yes.
if you were to have a podcast, what would it be?
Ooh, wish I was more prepared for that question. If I were to have a podcast, I would definitely have it on ghost hunting.
Okay.
And why is that, sir?
So a lot of people don't realize this, but my first passion since before I got a memory was the paranormal.
Okay.
I would take this further back than my interest in filmmaking, and a lot of people know that I'm a huge wrestling fan as well, but this goes back way before then. And a lot of people would ask me, what got that passion? And I couldn't tell you. I just know that somehow I was born with it, and I just ran with that.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha. Is it like, would you say it's like the unknown?
I would say the unknown, yes. Because the unknown has a lot of influences on the way I write scripts. So if you see a lot of my stuff, there's always the plot twists, right? But I try to take it in a way that people don't expect, and some people get mad at me. I keep the ending open-ended.
Okay.
So you could take it any way that you want, but just the feeling of not being sure, being unknown, I've just loved that. It's always been the biggest creep factor for me.
I feel that. I don't know about you. Do you like when movies are left kind of with a cliffhanger or unknown?
Less of a cliffhanger and more of a open to interpretation in a sense.
I'm always a love-hate. With them. So I'm over
I
here
don't
like
necessarily. Okay, I don't love it, but there's certain movies where it's done well, and then there's other movies where it's just like, well, what the fuck now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's true. That's very true. And I think that depending on how your movies ended would depend on if I hated you or not, or loved you, right?
Yep.
And I hate you. No, but I have a love-hate too. I have a love-hate with it, and I feel like a lot of people don't like it. I think, to your point, if it is done well and done tastefully and creatively, I think it makes sense. I think a lot of people, they'll just put an open ending just to do it, and those people frustrate me.
Yeah.
Those people frustrate me a lot. They're like, I'm going to be artsy, and I'm not going to put an ending.
Yeah.
You know?
It could also be a cheap way out.
That's true.
Yep,
That's true
that is
too.
Very true.
Yeah, where they just don't, they can't think of an ending.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, let's let's just not end it. Okay, interesting. So now I know a little bit about this, but I want to know more. So you would have it about ghost hunting, but you also do ghost hunting.
Correct.
Do you want to talk more about that?
Sure. Well, it's relatively new, me being into the ghost hunting field. How it started was just like everything else in the world. The pandemic kind of hit the reset button for me.
Okay.
At the time, I was just about to release my first feature film, which is about alien abduction. And I premiered it to the cast and crew. It was sold out. Their family, I think maybe like 150 people. And this was right about the time the news was coming out about, theaters shutting down, restaurants, all of that. Yeah. So within the next week after that, everything completely shut down.
So you were a super spreader. Got it.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Just clearing that up. All right. Yep. Continue.
Yeah. So, once that was done, it was about a year. I marketed it. I went through the film festival circuit, got distribution for it. And then I ended up having so much free time that I was like, you know what? Let me look into something that I want to do, right? So I ended up seeing this book. It's called Ghost Hunting for Dummies. And I thought that was the funniest thing ever. So I bought it just as a joke to me, right? But I ended up reading it. And a lot of the information that was in it, I found out to be, pretty accurate. One of the actors in my film, she actually is a psychic medium. She's from Cape Cod.
Oh, cool.
So during this time, I was talking to her about this kind of stuff, and I told her I was reading this book, and some of the stuff that I was learning from it, she was actually confirming, yes, this is what it is. Nice. So during that time, I just decided to keep learning, keep going into this stuff. Now, the main actor from that movie, he wanted to do a ghost hunting show. Him and his mother, both of them. So I remember this clearly. We were at an Olive Garden, and they dropped a big list of places they wanted to go investigate within Massachusetts. Yep. And from there, we decided to produce 2 episodes. At this point, we call them pilot episodes because they only have, we were only able to do, we released 2, we've done 3.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
The third one is, we'll just say it's in the can. There's an interesting story behind that.
Okay.
But the first episode was for the Lizzie Borden house.
Yep.
And then the second one, we were actually contacted by a restaurant in Norwood, Massachusetts, and they have a huge amount of paranormal activity.
Okay.
So we were able to do the second episode there, and we were the first ones to ever investigate that.
Oh,
Nice.
that's cool.
Very nice.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So, you're approaching, you haven't done it before, right? Mm-hmm. And that first one that you did with the Lizzie Borden house, what is your approach to that? Having never done it before, but also coming from a film background, wanting to capture it, how was the process?
So yeah, it was a big learning curve because the first thing is it's basically like creating a documentary. Mm-hmm. Okay, you go out, you capture how it happens, and then you go. I think the biggest thing was making the story out of what we had. Mm-hmm. The big thing about ghost hunting is evidence review. It's the hardest thing you can do because depending on how you do it, I've evolved into now being able to set up cameras and let them record for whatever the 8 or 12 hours that we're there. Yep. And then you got to go and review each and every single second of it. And yeah. And you have to you have to pay attention. You cannot be watching TV. You can't listen to music. You just got to sit there and stare at the screen and just keep your attention. Because the biggest piece of evidence could be the smallest thing that shows up on your screen.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Damn.
So, the first time we didn't have any cameras hooked up because it was just, you go into this place, it's owned by other people.
Yeah.
And we lucked out because you can rent rooms independently, but there was only one other group there and they were the quietest people. We didn't even know that they were there. So we essentially had the whole house to ourselves.
Nice. Were they even real? Did they even exist?
I don't know. Because when we woke up in the morning, yes, we did sleep, but they were gone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. They might not have been real.
Nope.
Spoopy.
Yeah. So, so to be able to go through all of that evidence, put it together, make a story out of it, it was really accomplishing because I'd never done anything like this before. It was almost like it is a childhood dream. Yeah. More than making a movie. Like that's a great feeling as well. But to know that I'm tapping into something that not a lot of people know about it,
Yeah.
So,
And you're able to navigate and mix your, expertise and knowledge of filmmaking into this passion and this childhood passion of yours, which I feel like must be really fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think honestly, I watch a lot of documentaries. I don't watch, this is going to shock a lot of people. I don't watch a lot of movies. Mostly TV series, but documentaries is basically my go-to.
Yep.
And I love the format of the documentaries that are coming out now, especially at the crime and the and the paranormal ones, obviously.
Yeah, obviously, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that I what was I going to say? That I think that it's so interesting that aspect of having to watch everything. Not that I didn't think about, because it makes sense, right? Because you don't even want to miss a frame.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking about that from just a time standpoint and a technical standpoint. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, a buddy of mine did it very, very briefly for that reason. We set up back when I had the Canon 5D, we set up the Canon in his house because he thought his house was haunted.
Yeah.
It was a very old house in deep in a Drake.
Gotcha.
And he thought his house was haunted. He had some experiences there. He'd do a couple EVPs there.
Yeah.
And I remember what got me to actually agree to do it was he showed me one. We had a party there that night, and then we all left, and it was just him and our other friends. Our other friends is I want to say a little bitch when it comes to this stuff. It was just the two of them. They were getting ready for bed. She was sleeping on the couch, and he had a piano there, and then all of a sudden they just hear a key be hit, and they're like, what the fuck was that about? And he's like, I'm getting the EVP, and she's like, no, you're not. And, he set it up, and then they were asking questions and reviewing it afterwards, and the only reason why I believe that this actually happened is because she was there with him as well, and we were really, really good friends, and she would say if it was full of shit or not, but he was asking in the recording, he's like, where are you right now? And then you hear a little voice go, under the table.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, fuck, that sounds like somebody actually said that. And he's like, you're not fucking with me, right? She's like, no, I want no part of this. And you can hear on the recording say, I don't want any fucking part of this. I don't agree to this. I don't consent. And so we set up a camera in his house, and we did it in a couple different locations, did a couple EVPs, but nothing really came of it. Unless we do have evidence and we just don't look hard enough.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, that's the thing. You're not guaranteed to get something
Of course.
all the time, right?
Yeah.
But specifically, there were 2 times that I had to go back and listen to things. Specifically in the Lizzie Borden house, speaking of EVPs, we did have one audio recorder that we were doing that with, but I didn't hear much. And I'm going back and watching all these ones that are on the streaming platforms, all the ghost hunting shows. Obviously there's an element of theatrics to that,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
But I'm like, there's no way that these guys can always hear an EVP during their investigation. So one time I actually had, there's a recorder that looks like an iPhone, an iWatch.
Okay.
So I bought that because you can just hit the record button and let it record, and there's no handling noise, none of that stuff, right?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I went back to listen to that file because I felt like I had every audio that I needed on the cameras. And this is what also intrigues me, because having a camera background, right? All this technology, the microphones, I know everything about it, right?
Yep.
And the fact that I heard a voice that came in and answered one of my questions that was on the audio recorder, but I couldn't hear it on the camera, which was right next to it. I was holding the camera here, and the thing was on this wrist.
Huh.
And it wasn't as clear as you think. You'd have to boost it a little bit.
Yeah.
But the question I asked was, our host, Owen Meyer,
Yep.
he was playing with a dresser in one of the bedrooms in there. And the theory goes, if you take money from it, the old man, Andrew Borden, the father, he would mess with you for the whole night. And he did mess with him, actually. But so I asked the question in the living room where that guy was murdered. And the question was, who took the money from your dresser? And on that recorder, the EVP said, that was him. And I compared it with the camera audio, and I could not hear it on the camera audio. As much as the boosting I had, it intrigues me how that can happen.
Yeah. Do you have any idea at all how that can happen? How it can come up on one source and then another source being so close to it and it doesn't come up on that?
Not at all.
Wow.
Could be like frequencies, the levels that the audio set.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, spirits, they operate on frequencies, and so what we hear, sometimes they can hear it. It depends on how much energy is restored to them. But as far as like why different cameras can pick up something, I couldn't tell you. And I have another in that restaurant where I went back a few times and set up cameras on a different occasion, and I was able to capture a light that glows. I set up a camera in the kitchen that was facing towards the dining room. And then I had another camera that was in the dining room facing towards the kitchen. And I was able to capture a light that glows in the dining room through the kitchen camera.
Okay.
But the dining room camera did not capture that light.
Interesting.
That's so weird.
Yeah. So that's where the paranormal comes into play. It's just something that you just cannot explain.
Yeah.
So is that how do you differentiate between the evidence? Like, where's the hard evidence versus like kind of the speculation? Like, was this a whisper, or was this just a pipe, or was this a house settling, or was this a light? What is this orb? Is this orb like just a fly that's flying around? Because how do you separate the two?
As
like
this orb lands on me.
Yeah.
I guess there's our answer.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. You have to really know what you're going into, right? You have to take in your environment. Speaking of orbs, like, I don't personally believe in orbs, but there is a specific method. If an orb is traveling around in a specific pattern, as opposed to dust that just flies off like this, right? It goes with the current.
Yeah.
That is how you differentiate whether it could be an energy, because these cameras can pick up infrared light. Spirits supposedly operate on a visual frequency that we can't see, but cameras can, because if you take that infrared, the filter off, it'll be able to see anything. But you do have to do a lot of debunking and just being aware of what is around.
Yeah.
You do have to do like a visual sweep and an audio sweep of the location before you start, and identify potential pipes banging or something like that. Like in a kitchen, you have the ice machine that drops, and it sounds like it's a big crash.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So if you hear that, we were actually hearing there's a bar that has the soda machine, and the compressor would go off. So if you hear like a clicking that kept going off, that's something you have to be aware of during all of that.
Yeah. So how do you set up like a typical like hunt? Like, walk us through like start to finish of what something like that would kind of like look like.
Yeah, so definitely I take a look around, and then again I identify potential like air conditioning units, speakers that are already pre-installed or just around. Those are the big offenders of making noise. So just kind of like going into a film studio. You know?
Yeah.
So also one of the equipment that we have, the EMF detector, that picks up electromagnetic fields. So we go around, we just sweep it, and if there's an air conditioner unit or if there's a panel box that has internet or whatever it might be, power, we go ahead and we identify those, and then we just mark it off so that way we know if there's any huge spikes, we take note of what could have caused it. But if it's in the middle of the room, then it's not going to go off. And if it does, then that's how you determine that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then from there, we just roll out. I have security cameras that are wired. I don't deal with wireless because the ghosts love to mess with technology. And so we just roll out the wires, set them up, and then we hit record. And then we just do what we need to do. We also need to get a good history of the area, of the actual place.
Okay.
But sometimes it's not always possible.
Okay. So research is key.
Yes.
Research is huge. Okay.
Yeah.
So for that, the second place that you mentioned, what was it again? You say it was in Danvers?
Norwood.
Norwood.
Yeah, the
sorry.
restaurant.
So for that, did you end up finding anything else at the restaurant? Like, what was some of the? I'm just so curious on like what were some of the like spooky things or like the interesting things that you've collected or you captured or you witnessed.
So I do have, there's a combination of things. Stuff that I can prove, that I can show you, and then there's stuff that I can't show you, which is the biggest thing about this stuff. So I do have evidence of one of the cameras in the kitchen I set up next to a dishwasher, which is supposedly the most active area. There is we call it either an ectoplasm, a lightning bolt, what have you. In filmmaking terms, it looks like film scratch.
Okay.
Okay. And that pops up for like 2 frames and then goes away right in front of that dishwasher. This is evidence that I didn't see the first pass. And then the second pass, because I was sick with COVID and had nothing else to do, I decided to rewatch it and I saw that. And now, as a debunking mechanism, again, it helps to have this filmmaking background. To me, it looked like a film scratch.
Yeah.
But these are digital cameras, and they're
Exactly.
all wired.
Yeah.
So there's no wireless interference. If there was any pixelation, it would be square blocks.
Yep.
Exactly.
Artifacting, that kind of stuff. But this is like a squiggle.
Okay.
So I like to call it lightning bolt. Sounds cooler.
Yeah. Instead of
The-
squiggle.
Yeah. But that is just a form of energy that's trying to manifest.
Okay.
So, and that's showing up visually in probably a light form, a light wave that we can't see, but the camera can.
Gotcha.
We have, what else was on there? There was a shadow that appeared on the TV. It was a TV that was off. It only shows Kino. And for some reason, there was a shadow that just appears, and this is caught on my security camera. And it looks like a man, just like got a head, shoulders, and nobody can explain how that showed up. Now, if it was a true shadow, like from a light source, there would be shadows on the wall.
Yeah.
It would actually show up within the bezel of the screen, but it only shows up within the screen.
Oh, okay.
So there's a theory, and one of the pieces of equipment that we use uses this technology. I think it's called ITN. I don't remember what it stands for.
Okay.
But basically, electronics, spirits use that to communicate. So TVs, radios, the white noise from that, which is leftover remnants from the Big Bang, it's just energy. They're using that to show themselves. So we're thinking that this is probably one of those things where a spirit was using that TV to be able to show itself because it had the energy that it needed to manifest.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then there was one other few different instances where my camera would stop focusing. It wouldn't focus at all. This was when a security panel where they type in the lock code.
Yep.
That flipped down on its own. And as soon as that happened, my camera stopped focusing, and we went over to it. And as soon as I panned away from it, it focused right away.
Weird.
Just small little things like that.
Yeah.
I do have an SLS camera, which utilizes an Xbox Kinect camera.
Okay.
So Microsoft developed software that you can download to your computer, and it's basically for developers, and it creates a stick figure over people. So
Oh yeah. Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
So basically what that uses is infrared lights that project dots. And you can see that on our cameras. When we go around, there's a big grid of dots just lining up. So it uses depth perception. And this is the weird thing about it. You can see it in the night, in the dark, right?
Okay.
So the dots pick up the depth of your body to be able to map out the stick.
Yep.
But if there's no one there and it's picking up a stick, which I have done in that restaurant, this is where it's hard to explain because there's nothing there, but the camera is picking up something and registering that there's a figure.
Yeah.
So one of the instances, we were sitting with the owner, Karen. They love her. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but they mess with her all the time.
Yeah.
She was sitting at the booth and she's saying, like, Daniel, I can feel him behind us. And I'm with Susan, our psychic, as well. And I had the camera on her and I was like, yes, Karen, because I can see them right behind you. There was a big stick figure right behind her. It was headless, So I don't know where the head was. maybe there was a butcher that came in and cut the head off. But
could have been anywhere. Yep.
Yep. And then recently we do public investigations there, and I put the SLS camera there at the dishwasher, the same place where I saw that lightning bolt.
Yeah. Squiggle.
Yep. Squiggle.
Yeah.
And it always shows up there. There's always a figure that's standing at that dishwasher.
That's wild. And no explanation.
No explanation.
You couldn't debunk it.
Nope.
Just never clocking off for work.
Yeah.
Yep.
They should keep him.
die
They should keep him there. He's a great worker.
Yep.
Yeah.
You live to work, you die to work. So
That's apparently.
Yeah.
I love hearing about things that can't be debunked.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it because I'm into all this stuff, and I know that he's a little bit more of a skeptic.
I can be quite the skeptic.
With a lot of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm more of a believer. Yeah.
I'm a skeptic believer.
Yeah.
So, I try to make sure that everything makes sense.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I feel like you have to be.
Yeah.
Because especially if it's like, it technically is like, your job in that setting.
Yeah.
Where it's like as a ghost hunter, like you have to debunk it because you can't give the wrong information to someone, or you can't try to fluff it up and make it seem fake because
Right.
you want it to be authentic.
Exactly. And that's the last thing I want to do.
Yeah.
I realize that I'm doing this on a TV show, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm doing this on the side too. I do this outside of the show because I really enjoy doing this stuff, and I'm trying to prove to myself. So the fact that I'm trying to prove myself that this stuff is real, which every day, every time I go, there's something that makes me believe 100%.
Yeah.
So whatever you see from me, it's unaltered. However, it's up to you to decide whether it's real or not.
Yeah.
Whether it's paranormal, whether it's a dead person coming back. That's not up for me to decide for anybody.
Yeah. You're just sharing the information, and what people will do with it.
Right.
They'll do with it. Yeah, but either way, nothing's altered. You're genuine and you're real with everything that you're providing for people. You're not just trying to provide shit for entertainment.
Right.
Like, you want to just make it as authentic as you possibly can.
Right. And that's why I said that we filmed 3 episodes,
Yeah.
but only have released 2.
Why's that?
The third one would have been at the Colonial Inn, which is in Concord.
Okay.
It was a hospital for this. I never remember. It's the Revolutionary War.
Okay.
I always want to say civil, but no, it was Revolutionary. And one of the most haunted rooms there is room 24. So we booked that room and we stayed overnight. I got no evidence from it. That's part of the game. You don't get evidence. So I understand when you do a show, you need to build the story over it.
Yeah.
But again, that's also documenting the reality of it.
Of course.
So what if I make a story that's based around what we do as opposed to what we captured?
Yeah.
But the thing is, I've never, and I don't usually tell this to a lot of people, but that night, something came home with me that night, and this is what I call it a life-changing experience.
Okay.
Sometimes it's almost like a near-death experience, because I left that day and I was just totally different. My feelings, all of it, everybody could see that there was something wrong with me. So in that room, it was an operating room. So there could have been a lot of death in there. Mm-hmm. The spirit that we believe came home with me was a Revolutionary War spirit, soldier. And how I noticed it was, we left the room, me and the host, and we just decided to walk around Concord because it's a beautiful town.
Yeah.
And this was around November 10th. I remember that day specifically because it really made an impact on me. So we're walking around and I'm like, I don't want to go back into this place. Something was telling me not to go back in there. And I was having the time of my life just going around this dark town, just, screwing around. It's like our 30-minute break from filming. But I just didn't want to. We went back to the hotel, and just standing outside, I looked up at the window and I'm like, I don't want to go back. So right then and there, I knew something was probably there, but I didn't pay too much attention to it. Eventually we did go back. We finished up, and our next stop was to go back to the battlefield. And it's about a mile away from it. It's where the shot heard round the world was. So my friend was driving that to the battlefield, and I was just so nauseous. My mouth was dry, and for some reason I was just nervous as shit. I couldn't shake this feeling off. We also got lost many times trying to get to that. So I don't know if that was like anything to do with it. So we eventually meet Owen, Myra, and my friend Dave, who is my other person on the show. They said that they saw something within the bushes, right? But they weren't recording anything. I had all the equipment.
Oh, okay.
So obviously that can't be proven. However, we started going in, and I just told them, like, look, let's be here for like a little bit. Is it like 4 o'clock in the morning? I was like, I'm not feeling well, and I'm not staying in this hotel room, so I'm getting out of here.
Yeah.
Right? So we did what we needed to do out there. It was a bust, and my friend drove me home. Got home around maybe like 7 in the morning. And I tried to go to sleep because we were up all night. But I couldn't sleep, and I actually lost my memory from that night. And the problem was, like, I was trying to remember what we were doing. I couldn't remember what we were doing. All I knew was we were in that room, and I was with the people that I was with. I try to think of like people that I work with on a regular basis, like, you know, even my parents, people I see all the time, and I couldn't picture people's faces or any of their names. And that's when I knew something was wrong with me. So I get on the phone, I text Myra, who she is the producer of this, and I said, hey, something's wrong. She has a knowledge of the spiritual world as well. They live in Salem, ironically.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah. So they, this was like, 7 in the morning. She's like, oh man, you got to come by. We didn't do any of the saging. We didn't do any of the cleansing that you're supposed to do. So I fell asleep with the plans of going over to their house on at night. And when I woke up, it was the most dreadful feeling that I ever had. I woke up with, it's a combination of anxiety and deja vu, but like to 100% maximum.
Okay.
Right. I woke up and the first thought on my mind was like, am I dying? Because it was that intense and I didn't know what was going on. So with that mindset, like, am I dying? I was like, okay, this is definitely something that is with me. All day, I was getting that same feeling 30 minutes a day. And it was like a rhythm of how many times I was getting this. And it didn't matter. I tried to go back to sleep, take naps throughout the day. And I was trying to preoccupy myself watching movies and listening to music or whatever. But that feeling came out. It was the most scariest feeling I've ever had. The evening came, and I'm on my way to Salem. And listen, I'm not an emotional person, so for me to admit this is actually kind of embarrassing, but I was crying on my way over to their house. I do not know what came over me, but I was crying, I was dry heaving, and ironically enough, I was burning up, like I had a fever. So I get to their house. They do, Myra does her thing with the sage and, the cleansing.
Yep.
And it kind of helped, but it didn't at the same time,
Okay.
because we did it twice. Mm-hmm. And she's like, do you feel any better? I'm like, yeah, but I think it's just because I was in the presence of people that I knew.
Yeah.
But the feelings were just coming back even after I was sitting in their kitchen, just having conversation. And we had to, we actually had to go to, we had to talk to Susan, who's the psychic. We had to talk to her about the Cafe Venice investigation, which is that restaurant.
Yep.
So we were doing it the next day or 2 days after. And we had to go over the plans of what we were going to do. And I had to tell her what was going on, because I know that you can take a spirit with you and bring it to another place.
Yep.
And I was like, if this place is already having issues, I don't want to bring something that's even worse, because I didn't know who this was at the time. So I talked to her. I says, hey, listen, Susan, I got to tell you right away that I think I have an attachment with me. And I described everything I was doing for her. And she's like, yes, you definitely have somebody with you. And we can't do this next investigation until we get rid of it. So I'm like, oh, God, how do we do this, right? So believe it or not, she actually gave me, it's basically, in a nutshell, an exorcism over the phone. Because I'm not going to bring her all the way from Cape Cod up to Salem. I've done that enough times. But so she did a low-level exorcism over the phone, and she had to do it like 3 times before I was fully cleansed. And I tell you, like, I felt everything she was telling me to feel. Basically, it started from the heels of your feet all the way up. And then the light is supposed to come around you. You're supposed to envision light, and it comes around you like a bubble. And that light is, not the light of God, but like just love and energy, that kind of stuff, to keep the negativity away from you. And in the third time it worked. I couldn't explain it. So when I confirmed that this was gone, she told me that this is how I know what it was. She told me that this was the spirit of a Civil War, Revolutionary War soldier, and what had happened is he probably was shot or had some kind of infection that he died from in that room, and that because I didn't tell her any of the heaving or the fever, and she explained both of those symptoms to a T. She's like, you might have had a fever, you could be nauseous, that kind of stuff. And I was like, that's exactly what happened to me on the way up there. And then I left that house and I was crying again, but I was really happy. And then that whole week, the next day specifically, and then the rest of the week, my perception of the world changed. And this is, again, I'm going to work the next day, something I do every day. Yeah. It just seemed like a different place. Everybody that I was with was different. I was watching the Patriots game, and I was so happy to be watching the Patriots game. It was back when they were good. Yeah. And,
yeah, and now we're all nauseous and dry heaving. Watching the Patriots game. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I do equate that to being a near-death experience, because whatever this guy was feeling when he died was what I was feeling. That first thought of waking up and like, am I dying? That could have been his reaction to me. And that's something that I can't prove because it's all here. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to make an episode over that, and try to present it as a real thing that happened. But to me, it was real, and I think that's what made me a 99% believer.
Wow. What are your thoughts on that?
There's still that 1%. No, it's definitely fascinating. Have there been not necessarily experiences like that, but like it seems like you have a big passion for the paranormal,
yes.
And it sounds like it didn't just happen because of this. Was there something that kind of, and I know you said nothing really essentially got you into it, but have there been experiences in the past that have been like, whoa, shit, this is legit? Like there's something else other than us,
To be honest, no. I've never, like, a lot of people say, oh, I grew up, I saw a shadow on my wall, or, a succubus was coming down on my bed or whatever. But I've never had any of that. My grandfather, he allegedly, and I never met him, he had the ability, the psychic ability as well. And there's a few people in my family that do. They keep it quiet because, it's something you don't really want to.
Yeah, it can still be a little taboo.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I know my brother was always into like the cryptoids and all that. My family's from, there's an area called the Bridgewater Triangle. Yeah. So like they infiltrate that whole area. So I always spent time down there, and I've always heard the stories. So, but I've never really seen anything other than when I was making one of my alien abduction film. I might have seen something up in the sky, but other than that, that was my first real experience to me.
Gotcha. Yeah. For those who don't know what the Bridgewater Triangle is, do you want to explain it real quick if you can?
Yeah. So basically, the triangle is it's 3 points. If I remember correctly, it's literally Bridgewater. It starts at, goes down to Rehoboth, and then Taunton, if I'm not mistaken. So it makes a triangle within the state, and it's all swampland. So there's a bunch of supposed cryptoids, like, lack of a better term, Bigfoot, which I don't personally believe in.
You're looking at him right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, size 13 right here. Yeah. But yeah, so there's entities like that. There's alien sightings. A lot of apparitions that show up within the woods and the houses and buildings that are within it. And it sounds like the Bermuda Triangle where people go missing, but no, it's just a weird area that has all this kind of stuff. I have a cool theory, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with Route 24.
I'm not.
I'm not. No.
Okay. Route 24 it goes from Randolph down to Fall River, and it cuts right through the Bridgewater Triangle. Now, there's a lot of car accidents and deaths there. You go along the side, there's like a cross like almost every 2 to 3 miles of somebody who crashed and, passed away there. So my theory is because it goes through the Bridgewater Triangle, which was also Native American territory. I feel like that highway's haunted. Of course, that's just my theory, but it's just one of those things that I can see happening over there.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense.
Yeah.
If it's disturbing the land and all that, again, depending on if people believe in that or not.
Yeah.
But that's a good theory.
Yeah. I'm trying to make a documentary on it. A fake documentary. What do they call that? Mockumentary.
Yeah. Trying to make a mockumentary on it?
Yeah.
How are you going to make a mockumentary on that?
I have no clue. It's just something I was like, there's so many potholes on that freaking road. I was like, well, maybe we can make a mockumentary on like just the DPW, right? And I was like, no, it's the ghosts that are making these potholes. So that way they can just swerve people off there, get their land back.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm calling it now. What's going to happen is that you're going to go to make this mockumentary, and then it's going to turn real, and you're going to actually end up capturing stuff, and then it's just going to be a play on itself.
They could.
That would be, and then it turns into a documentary.
A mockumentary.
I know. I made one of those in college once, and my whole class was confused as fuck. It was for my mockumentary class. I don't know. Did you ever take that?
I did.
Yeah. So I did one for there, and they were like, make a mockumentary, and I was like, I want to make a mockumentary about making a mockumentary, and it was essentially like that. Like we tried to make a mockumentary, and then the things ended up happening in there, and then it ended up turning into more of a documentary, which in theory turned it into making a mockumentary about making a mockumentary. And I was trying to explain that in like the prep, and people are like, the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it's like an onion. There's layers. And then I like showed it, and like 50% of the people got it, and they were entertained by it. And then I just remember Tim Jackson, who anybody listening or watching this, Tim Jackson, I liked him. He was a professor of ours, a very eccentric human.
Yeah.
Also an actor and director and somebody that's been in some stuff. He was in Chappaquiddick. I think that was one of the most recent known things. He had a role in that. But yeah, I just remember him being so confused and him just being like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, I don't know. It's a swing. All right. I tried.
Yeah.
But that's how I could see something end up happening, but in your area where it just ends up turning legit, and then you're actually capturing stuff.
Well, people would think it's real,
Yeah, they would think it's real. Yeah,
there's a lot of misconceptions, and people don't know what's real anymore versus what's made up.
Especially with AI, right?
Yeah.
And
oh man, don't get me. That scared me when I used AI. I'm sorry, everybody. I used AI to make like storyboards for a script that I was writing.
Yeah.
And one of the prompts I put in was an exorcism gone wrong, and the image that came out, I was like, wow, this looks so real.
No, wow.
So like, I think we're going into that time where maybe my field, specifically the ghost hunting, could definitely be faked 100% more than it already is.
Damn, yeah. How does that make you feel overall, though, where it's somebody like you who's coming at it from such a authentic, organic place that it could just make it easier for people that are just trying to make a quick buck or trying to trick people?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the thing is, most of us do this because we're interested and we want to get the truth out of there. And then there are the people that are just looking, like you said, to make a quick buck. But I think at the end of the day, it's always going to be up to the person who's watching to understand what's going on there.
Yeah.
And, I'm guilty of it because I'm making a show out of it.
Yeah.
But it's called, it's just popcorn entertainment.
Yeah.
At this point. So, but no, I understand that there's people out there that are going to fake things out. But I try not to do that. And if I have any doubts that something is, if it's explainable, then I'm just not going to include it. That's why I don't like orbs. Orbs suck.
What's your biggest qualm with orbs?
Well, this dust. It definitely shows up as, flies flying around, that kind of stuff. It's so easily debunkable. I remember back in like 2000, in the early 2000s, people would take pictures with their cameras, and they had a camera strap. You'd always see like this big, they called it ectoplasm, right in the middle of the lens, and they called it a ghost. You don't see that anymore. Why? Because there's no camera straps anymore, right? Now, the big thing is you take a picture of a light, like the spotlight over here, and the camera lens is reflecting that, the lens flare. It's always blue. And people are always saying, "Oh my God, that's such a angelic orb," and all that stuff. And I'm like, no, that's just the iPhone lens. Come on.
Yeah.
And again, unfortunately, there are people out there that just take everything, way too seriously, and they think everything is paranormal.
Yeah.
So that's something I always have to look out for on that, especially when we do the public investigations.
Yeah.
I'll always look at it and I'll try to judge it in the moment, and I'll always let them know that there could be an explanation for this.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if I have no explanation, I'll tell you. It's like, wow, can't explain it.
Nice. How often do you run into like those when you're doing the public things?
We've done 3 of them. Two of them, I've run into people like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What were some of the things that you couldn't explain that happened?
Definitely the lens flares. I have to explain that. The EMF detector, it depends on where it is in the moment. Because we have a large group of people.
Okay.
So they go off into different areas. They'll record it on their phones, and then they'll play it back for me. And I'm looking within the video. I was like, well, is there any electrical boxes, that kind of stuff? They're like, no, we were sitting at the table. I was like, okay, well, if it's at the table, then it's possible that those spikes that you were getting consistently could have been something, because there's nothing around it unless they had their phone too close to it. But you have to have the phone like right here next to the detector.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that you just have to be really, I guess, delicate with.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to shatter these people's dreams either, but you got to let them know at the same time this is what's could have caused it.
Of course. Of course. Well, again, you want to be honest with them.
Yeah.
I'm sure that it's tough finding that balance. Plus, again, people, I think they want to believe. There's a lot of people out there where I feel like it's either or, right? Where it's like either you want to just prove everything, like, oh, there's an explanation for everything.
Yeah.
But then there's other people, like, as you said, it's like they want to see orbs. It's like they want to believe that there's something. I've seen my fair share of kind of things that were like 50-50, and ones where having a knowledge of cameras and seeing people like maybe make posts or talk about orbs. And like I'll look and I'll be like, it's reflection, or it's this or it's that. And then sometimes I'll see them and I'll be like, I don't know, actually. I have no idea. Like the movement, it doesn't make sense with like the movement of the camera and the phone, or, to the light source and all that stuff. And it is a little bit, trippier. I see a lot of that stuff with, cause my wife is in that realm. She's in that spiritual realm. And, so I'm somewhat knowledgeable about some things from her. And sometimes like we'll go over stuff if she catches something or she sees something. She's like, does it look like this is an orb or this? And I'll always tell her, I'll be like, I don't know. I think that's the light. Like, I think that's reflection. I think that's this. I think that's that. But there's a handful of times where I'm like, I don't know. I don't see anything. I have no idea. But I think there's a lot of people out there that either want to believe or they just don't want to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely 50-50. You're either closed or you're open.
Yeah.
And I think even if you're open, you're still closed a little bit, or at least you should be,
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything.
Yeah. You're just there to present the facts.
Yeah.
I think that's the right way to do it. I wish that people would do that in the news.
Oh.
Yeah. Different time. Different conversation. But yeah.
Invite me back. We'll talk about that too.
Talk about scary.
Yeah. Talk about scary. Yeah. Talk about paranormal. No.
Yeah.
Just present the facts.
Yeah.
Without like without a bias of leaning towards like, oh, like you're trying to convince someone.
Yeah.
And being like, yeah, this is legit. This is legit. It's like, no, you're actually, which I respect a lot. I love that. I think that's the right way to go about it.
Yeah.
And especially even just from a filmmaking standpoint, I feel like a lot of filmmakers and a lot of documentarians, and I'm sure that you see it too, a lot of times going into stuff, there's a bias of how you want, because as you know, you have to craft the story, so what's going to be compelling, and sometimes just sharing what happened and showcasing what happened isn't entertaining. Like the third place.
Yep.
Sharing what happened, you don't have any actual facts. You know what I mean? Like you don't have anything caught on camera other than your story and what you experienced firsthand. So I think that to people, that could be boring. But in my opinion, if you want my opinion,
Makes the other two more credible.
Well, it makes the other two more credible, and it shows that it's authentic, right? And that sometimes you get nothing.
Yeah.
But I think that you telling your story is worth it. I think that you mentioning what happened, I think that that's worth it to put in. Because even sitting here and listening to you talk about it, it seems very genuine. I don't have any questions. I don't think that you're bullshitting. I believe that you experienced this, and I believe that there was something that was attached to you and all that. And I'm like, I was just so engaged. I think that there's going to be other people. And then again, for people who don't believe it, fuck them, right? You're sticking by what you're sticking by, which is telling the truth and being authentic. And, either people are going to believe you or they're not. But I think that sharing that story, I think that could be important for the piece. And I think that could be a completely different angle on that, instead of like people always expecting to see a little, lightning bolt or a squiggle, or a light or something picked up. I feel like that is something that's, I don't know. I think that's really fascinating. I think you should share that, in my opinion.
I might. It might be just like one of those special episodes, like the lost tapes, the kind of stuff. Yeah. Because unfortunately, thinking back to it, I'm killing myself. I'm like, damn it, I'm a filmmaker. I didn't record a single thing. But I do have the actual exorcism.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah. It was recorded on an iPhone, and we just placed it right in front of me. But I didn't do it. It was Myra. She did it, and she was in the right mindset at the time, not me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can't beat yourself up. You can't beat yourself up too much. We're going through an exorcism. You know what I mean?
It's like the least of my concerns right now.
I'm dying.
Get this thing out of me.
I'm dying. I can't make sure you hit record. I'm dying. No. I don't like that angle. A little bit to the left. Yeah, there we go. I'm dying. Oh my God. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And I know that you want to keep it for whatever you're doing, but if you end up being able to send me just a baby clip, a baby clip to share, I would love to share that. Just baby clip.
Yeah, I'll try to find the most entertaining part.
Okay, yeah, just a little bit. I won't show much because I want them to see it whenever you release it. But that would be really cool.
Yeah.
To showcase, because that's I don't know. That's really neat that you're alive. That's why it's good. That's why it's a good story, because you survived.
Yeah, and I became a different person out of that.
Yeah.
My beliefs changed, and just the way I present myself in personal life too.
Yeah. So what was the biggest? I mean, as you said, it was a near-death experience. But your takeaways afterwards, you mentioned briefly how you felt like a completely different person. But just to go a little bit more into detail about that, like how different did you feel? How are you viewing things differently? Like how's your perspective?
Just in general, like I've definitely, I don't know if you probably remember me as being like this shy person, right? Yeah. Eventually, it evolved because of the filmmaking, and I had to, come out of my shell. But now, it's like I'm not afraid to take on something. I've even taken a position at my full-time job that I never wanted to have before this stuff, because I'm like, I don't want that stress and that responsibility. But now it's like, well, I've already went through what I consider the worst thing in my life. And I've had two worst experiences, and it's like definitely the confidence to be able to just go out there and do something. And also, to realize that there's something else that could potentially be out there. So whatever you're going through, this is not the worst thing that you could ever do. Like, honestly, to me, death is not the worst thing to fear. It's the suffering. So that definitely, I suffered through that day, and I'm like, you know what? As much as I would actually bring it, if it happened to me again, I would allow it, because the aftermath of it, it's a high that you got off of. But I would hope that the next time, if it ever does happen, it's not an evil spirit. I was just lucky that it was a person, someone who went through their suffering. And at the end of the day, I think the tears of happiness was because we released that spirit. And so I don't know if the Colonial is still haunted, because I probably got rid of whatever was in there. But yeah, that's basically how my viewpoint of everything changed.
That would be interesting to reach out and see if they've been experiencing anything afterwards.
Yeah.
And see if you did release, if that was like what was there, if that was the only thing that was there.
Because we went back. There's a restaurant in there, and Owen, Myra, and myself. Owen and I share. Well, we have a birthday that's pretty close. I'm June 2nd. He's June 15th, and we kind of. Is it June 15th?
June 15th.
Happy birthday. Yeah. Late birthday.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Thanks. You too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we go there. We went there just to celebrate our birthdays together. And, I was kind of like nervous to do it because I was like, well, remember last time it happened, but I felt completely fine.
Wow.
You know,
Nice.
if you remember, I said I didn't want to go back in there after I went out the first time. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's just another thing that I'm just now comfortable with, to be able to go in to these places, because I'm never afraid to walk into a place.
Yeah.
I went into the Conjuring house like 2 weeks after that, and yeah, I was scared. Well, like, is the devil gonna come over and take me to hell or something?
Yeah.
But I went in there and I was fine. So.
Well, that's boring now.
Yeah, right. But my friend though, he disappeared on me. There's like a little river down behind there, and he was like getting headaches, and he just wasn't himself. And then we went outside to just take some fresh air. Here we go again with the outside stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if he ran, but he was gone. I turned around for 5 seconds to the car to get something, and he was already 400,000 feet down towards the river. I'm like, where the hell did you go?
Yeah.
And that's on camera too. Like, because I have the time code of where he was right behind me and he was right down at the river. It was literally like 6 seconds.
Damn.
And that's just another thing that I can't explain.
Yeah. And he just left.
Yeah.
Does he remember it or any of that?
He remembers that.
Okay.
He remembers that he just wasn't feeling right that whole time. And that's one of those things too, when you're doing these investigations, especially with people that aren't familiar, and he's familiar with this stuff.
Yeah.
But personality changes happen all the time. And if you disappear and you can't find somebody, Susan told me stories well after this happened. I'm like, this is exactly what happened to Dave, that he just disappeared and we couldn't find him. Also, the door would not shut on us, even though it was completely locked when the owner came in and locked us in.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't stay open. I mean, it wouldn't stay closed. I pull it right back open.
Weird.
Yeah.
Weird. Okay. I wanna witness some of these things at some point.
Yeah.
We gotta.
I think you should take us along on a hunt.
Yeah, you should take us along on a hunt sometime. And I know that my wife really wants to go. I mentioned that we were doing this today, and I mentioned you before to her and what you do.
My wife would 100% not want to be a part of that.
So that's why we need to tell her that we're going on a double date.
Yes.
And then you need to bring your wife. And then you show up. And you're like, where are we going? Oh, we're just going to a nice little cafe. Yeah.
Yeah.
17 people were murdered. Yeah.
One body in the sheets.
Yeah. Still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's I think that'd be fun. That would be because I'm in it. Like I believe in that stuff. So
Yeah.
I would love to experience it. I think it'd be a little heavier for Kim because she's more the veil is thinner for her.
Yeah.
So she experiences that a lot heavier than I do.
Right.
But I would be. I know that would be interesting. I'd love to see you in that situation. Yeah. I just want to see something that like physically happens that just makes you be like, fuck, okay. Yeah. I want that really bad for you. Yeah.
Well,
that's
to search for it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like to have a team, you need to have at least one skeptic on there, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's full blown or halfway, you need to have somebody like that because
Yeah.
one, you got to question everything too, right? But
Exactly.
the spirits love to mess with people that don't believe. So there's always going to be like things that'll push you down, or they'll grab you where you don't want to be grabbed, which has happened. Not to me personally,
What if
thankfully.
I want to be great?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, there's nowhere he doesn't want to be grabbed. Yeah.
Yeah, but and it's just like you said, the veil is thin for some people.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's in between. Like I can be, I could be on my A game one day and hear and see things, and there's other days where I'm just like, well, nothing happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Could you explain from your knowledge and just experience, because you've touched on it a little bit when it comes to like spirits and energy, but just for someone who has no idea about any of that, about how, energy works, or especially in like your field or how you see it, can you just explain that a little more for people? Just energy when it comes to, let's say, after someone passes or however you want to phrase it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I feel like some people don't know exactly where you're going with that.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It is a little difficult to explain, but there is a scientific reasoning behind all this stuff. So basically, there's two types of hauntings. There's intelligent, and then there's what do they call it? Residual energy. So basically, residual is exactly what it sounds like. It's just energy that's left over in a building or an area, and they get that. It's what they call the stone tape theory. So basically, if something was to something major to happen within the area. It doesn't have to be a death. It doesn't have to be anything. It could be. I worked at a Gannis Arena once when it was closed during the pandemic, and I walked in, and it's that feeling of an abandoned place, right? But it's also, the excitement that you still feel that's left over from all the people that are happy and, dancing, and, some people, if this was Michael Jackson, they'd be crying and dropping dead on the floor, right? But the stone tape theory is that energy is captured within like stones or concrete, that kind of stuff that holds water, and it can be released whether you do like renovations or something like that, or if something major happens that can release that energy. Like raining now, if something happened in this place, good or bad, the walls would be releasing that energy because of the water coming in. So that's what a residual thing is, just literally something playing over and over again. If it had enough of that intense energy to store in there, it would just play back. Whereas the intelligent one, that's exactly what it sounds like. It's the energy of a person that's left behind, because you cannot destroy energy. It can only be reused, right? Or it could be depleted completely. That's why the theory of if you die suddenly and you don't know it, your spirit stays, or your energy. And I do believe that, because when you die naturally, your energy is just depleting, and you can see that in people. It's just they're withering away. And when someone's taking their last breath, they already look like they're dead. So I don't believe that people who pass away naturally can stay over. So that's the difference between energy. And like I said, when I brought up the Aganis the example, because arenas are all made out of concrete. So whatever we were feeling in there is just residual. And there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in arenas.
Yeah.
That's why dorm rooms are always, you got Bridgewater State. I think Pine Manor College supposedly had some.
Yep.
What did students go through? They go through a lot of suffering, and there's a lot of pressure to get their assignments done, and they have all the personal stuff.
Or just traumas that happen.
Yeah.
Anything, yeah.
Yeah, they're on their own for the first time, so all of that's getting stored within the walls of that. The freaking hospitals, like, come on, prisons, that kind of stuff. It's always places like that where suffering happens. And, just the arena thing, to me, that just puts it in a little more positive light. But that's basically what we talk about when we talk about energy. Because when we say ghosts, we're really just saying energy.
Are there any, I wanted to ask you this, is there any other, like, because he said earlier on about any other ghost stories or just things that have happened, and you didn't have any, but do you have any? I was curious on if you had any.
Yeah, the only experience that I can really remember, and this kind of, I was young. I was very young. I was a child. So, imaginations, or, I'm little. I could have been asleep at this point. I don't know. I used to wake up in the middle of the night. My mom used to sleep on the couch, and I used to go and sleep on the couch with her. And then one night, I remember, again, very young, I woke up, went on the couch, and I laid down, and then I saw this little boy walking from my kitchen into the living room where we were sleeping, and he was just happy, and he was walking. And I do have a younger brother, however, he was in a crib this time. Like, he wasn't able to walk, so I did what any other little kid would do and just pull the covers over my head. And I went to sleep. And yeah, again, I don't know if it was a dream. I don't know if it was my imagination, or I don't know if it was actually real, because the apartment that I grew up in was a very old apartment, over 150, 180 years old. One of the first buildings to be, like, I think built in Lowell or some shit like that. But yeah, that's the only experience that really comes to mind. I'm trying to think of others. But yeah.
I have a few. A couple from when I was younger, than one when I was, like, not so young. From, like, I guess a more spooky sense, if you will, right? Because there's, like, spiritual stuff, and that's I put that kind of in a separate category. But when I was really young, I had a teddy bear, like most of us did, right? Teddy. I was very original with names, and I don't remember what happened. It was late at night in my apartment in Lowell. It was right next to a cemetery. And it was weird because, like, the location of the cemetery just it doesn't make sense. And it's just like, cuz it's all, like, apartments around it. and then
Yeah.
it's just the cemetery. And it's like on two sides there's apartments, and then there's like houses and condos, whatever, complexes. But anyways, and so it was always weird energy. My dad used to like make up stories and stuff, and say that, oh yeah, no, this is, this guy and whatever. And I realized when I got older, I was like, yeah, you're full of shit. Okay, I thought that all these things that you were saying were real, and it was just a scare tactic, or he was just being a dick. But I remember when I was young, I don't know why I felt the urge to, but it was late at night. I was watching TV. I think that my dad was asleep, and at the time, I think my mom was living with us, and I think she was asleep. And I took my teddy bear, and I just like took it, and I threw it into the hallway. And now, trying to paint this picture for what my apartment looked like, as soon as you walked in the door, it was like it was open, where there was a kitchen over here, and then it was attached to the living room, and then there was our couch was right at the edge of the living room, so that it kind of created this little walkway to a little back hallway where there was like a bathroom, a bedroom, and then a bedroom on the side. So it was like a T almost, right? And so I was at the edge of the couch over here, and for some reason I took it and I threw it so it landed right in the middle of that T. And then I was like, why did I do that? And then I looked over, and then I was like, where did I throw it? And then I see it lying there, and then I just see it go whoop. And then it just like somebody just pulled it into the bathroom, and I'm just like, nope, you can have it. And then I just like went to sleep. And then when I got up the next, I don't remember what happened when I got up the next day. I just remember that happened, and then I went to sleep, and I was like, that's fun. And then that just stuck with me. And then there was another time when I was young where I was lying on a couch and I was watching TV. And let's say that this is the edge of the couch or whatever, and I'm laying down, and I have my hand off the side with the remote, and it's just me. I'm home alone, and I'm just watching TV, and then all of a sudden I feel somebody like pull the remote out of my hand, and I was like, the fuck? And all of a sudden I jumped and I got up, and now you would think if it just fell, it would be there.
Yeah.
It would be down next to where it was. So I looked down. I didn't see anything here. I was like, what the fuck? And so I get up and I look over here, and there's nothing here. And then I walk around, and it's back behind the couch. And that I was old enough to not, if the teddy bear thing was like, maybe I was tired or imagination or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's kind of like similar to yours, where it's like, was it a dream? Am I, whatever, even though it felt kind of real. This was just so real. It was middle of the day. And I just remember seeing that, and I was like, I don't know how to explain this. I'm not going to try. I'm sitting over there. I was like, I am not laying here anymore. And I just remember those were the two kind of, things that really stood out when I was younger. And then the third, which is more, I think, of an interest to you, that I always forget about, and I remembered it earlier when you were mentioning one of your stories, was me and my dad all the time during the winters. We would go up to the beach. We'd go up to Hampton or Rye, and we would we essentially just kind of get a hotel up there because it was off season. So we would just make a weekend of it and go to the movies, go bowling, whatever. And we would just stay up at the beach. And we were we were staying in this type of Airbnb, this was before Airbnb, this B&B. And there was no stories about it, nothing like that, but there was just some sort of eerie feeling. And I remember we were staying in the same room, and we went up, and that night, I couldn't fall asleep. So when you walk in, there was a bed here, and then a bed over here, and then the wall. And the whole night, it was 2 a.m. or something, there was just people next door, and I could hear voices, and they were arguing. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm just trying to sleep. I was maybe 12, 13 years old, I don't even know. And then it was just all this stuff to the point where I thought somebody was getting hurt. And I was concerned, but I was like, I don't want to wake my dad up. I don't want to get into people's business. I don't want to do anything. And then, so whatever, I get to sleep, and then the next day I wake up, and we're leaving, and it is an electrical office, or a custodian, janitor's closet. And there's no other room around it that noises could have been coming from, and there was nobody underneath. I think like underneath was like their little cafe or something that wasn't occupied at night, and it wasn't open.
Spooky.
Yeah, no, it really was. And I just remember we walked out, and I was like, "What the fuck was that?" And because again, I was older. You know, I was a little bit older, where it wasn't like I was 5 years old. And that was probably one of like the spookier things.
I try to remember more. I was listening, but I wasn't listening.
You weren't listening.
I try to remember more, and I did. There's a couple that I remember mainly from that same apartment. I remember once my brother and I were at the kitchen table and we were eating. I remember we were having a Snickers. And my
Together?
parents,
Like Lady and the Tramp.
Tramp, yeah.
When I were very close.
Yeah, it was a mini Snickers. Yeah.
Yeah, so my parents were in the living room, and it was just us. And my bathroom door just slammed shut, and it scared the shit out of us. Now, some people may say that's wind. Could have been wind, but the windows were closed. Don't know. I say the skeptic side of me is like, yeah, it's wind. You're dumb. You're a child. It's just wind. But I mean, it slammed shut pretty hard, and it's never done that before. So, and then I was watching TV, laying down in my bed, and then I just felt something in between my legs just go boom, thump, like right in the, like a hand or something. Just, and this is when I was older too, like in my early
27.
20s. No,
oh, okay.
in my early 20s. It's just like something slapped in between my legs, and yeah, I remember that. I completely forgot about that. And then this next one, I want to preface, this probably didn't actually happen the way that I remember it, but it was very late at night. And, okay, I smoked weed for the first time in a long time that night.
Debunked.
Instantly debunked. But, however, I have smoked a lot of weed before that in my younger years, and I've done even worse than that. I've never had anything like this happen, but it could very well be the weed and the fact that I woke up in the middle of the night and my brain isn't quite there yet. But I remember I just woke up, and I forget if I was coming back from the bathroom or if I was just in bed. And then I look over, and my then girlfriend, now wife, she was just like sitting up in bed, just kind of like, it looked like she had just woke up, and she just kind of like looking around. And then she shoots up through the ceiling. I'm like, what the fuck? And then I remember, I wake her up. I'm like, are you okay? She's like, what? She's like, okay, good, you're still alive. I thought like her soul or something fucking left her body. I couldn't like tell if it was like her or not, but it looked like her. And then I don't know. That was very, it was strange. I've never really had anything like that happen. But again, it could have been the fact that I smoked marijuana previous that night. It wasn't even a lot though. It wasn't like, oh, I took a blow to that. It was like I hit from a fucking bowl.
It was a highly concentrated leaf.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I guess so. Yeah.
So it was like something where it looks like a spirit or something, or like ghostly.
It was
Or, like,
something
you
sitting
thought it was
up
her?
in bed, and then like it was very dark, so I couldn't really make out like the face, but I thought it was my wife.
My wife. And so then it shot up, and then you remained awake, or like you.
Oh, I was
up,
still awake,
and then you woke her up, and then you went.
Yeah,
And that was immediately after, right?
yeah. No, like I was awake, but yeah.
I never heard that one.
Yeah.
I've never heard that story.
Never told you that?
No, you never told me that one.
I wonder if it was before I met you. I'm trying to pinpoint
I don't know.
where in my life that happened.
That's interesting. What's your explanation for that?
That's tough.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the only thing I could think of was like astral projection.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But that's why I asked if it's immediately after.
Yeah.
But, you know.
But
yeah,
he
it was like
but
cautious.
But
I
would
was
he have-
personally cautious through the whole thing.
I was gonna say, but would
Yeah.
he have been able to see her astral projection, or unless he was astral projecting as well?
That I'm not sure of. You know.
So
And the thing is, it's like when you engage with the substances, it does mess with you like that. So you're gonna see more things like that.
Yeah.
You know.
But like, I've never had that happen when
Yeah.
smoking weed. Like, it's never been psychoactive before or since. And I used to smoke a lot when I was a kid. But I don't know. I just attribute it to the fact that I was high and I was asleep.
But you know what it is? It's also when you're also waking up, so your guard's dropped. So anything happens, most things happen when you're asleep. And that's one of the major things you got to be aware of in that field, especially when you go into it knowingly, right? You got to have your guard up. You can't let anything come at you.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened to me when I was possessed, because I was just in. Basically, Owen and I, we always get along, and when we're together, it's always like, it's a big friendship, right? Yeah. So during that day, we were just screwing around, and I just dropped my guard. So when you do that, that's when things kind of just they appear more to you because you have that veil. It's opening up.
Yeah.
So, and it goes for drugs or alcohol. So when you do that, your guard is completely dropped. So you're going to be able to see things like that. Of course, I can't explain why you would see your wife just shoot up into the ceiling.
No idea what the hell that was about. But again, it's things that could technically be explained because, I did the marijuanas and I was like half asleep. But I don't know. The only other thing that I can remember is, when I was like maybe 13, 14. No, younger than that. Probably like around 10, 11. I was over at my friend's house, and he always swore that his house was haunted, and other people have had a lot of experiences at that house. And him, friends, people would sleep over. Never really liked sleeping there because it was like very active. That's what he said. And I do remember that he got up to go to the bathroom, and he left me alone in his room, and I was on his bed. And then I just felt and saw the side of the bed, like kind of depressed, like something sat next to me. And I forgot about that one.
Seem to have a lot of examples for someone that's such a
However,
right?
things that could technically be explained.
How would the impression on the
I
bed
don't
be
know.
explained? The wind?
It was the
right?
wind. Yeah. That one's a little. Yeah, that one was a little fucking weird.
Yeah. No, that one's a more of a classic one. The energy that has to manifest to be able to push something physically down, and it all comes down to kinetics. It's like the magnets. They have something that's push the magnetic field pushing against the other magnet. So that's almost the same aspect when it comes to that. They have enough energy to be able to push down onto that.
Interesting. Okay, that kind of makes sense. You know what else makes sense?
What, Mike?
41st Studios, our sponsor for today's episode.
Today's episode. Oh,
what is that?
41st Studios?
What?
Oh my God, what's 41st Studios?
Well, 41st Studios, I'm glad that you asked, Gerry. It's where we are right now.
Oh my God.
Yes, we are not just in a ghostly realm because of our guest today. We are in the psych wall, or some would say infinity wall, of 41st Studios. Yes. Why? What do you use this for, Gerry?
I use this.
Other than to cry.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's the only real reason that I use it for.
That's true.
So it's great if you're looking for kind of a blank canvas, if you will, because with this, the beauty of this is, yes, it looks like it goes on for infinity. So it's great for photography. It's great for videography. However, it can also be a blank canvas because you can throw whatever you want there. You can throw different color lights up there. You can build this into different sets, kind of like we did today. So it's kind of your imagination. It's very limitless.
Yes. As a filmmaker yourself, having access to, let's say, a space like this, how is this useful for you?
I mean, honestly, this is. I said before, I'm dizzy because I don't see an end to this. This is like the universe or something like that. No, this is honestly, it's set up so well that you can have anything. I can picture just having, like, I don't know, an Apple commercial. Let's go with that.
The classic Apple commercials.
Seeing Justin Long right there. Yeah. But of course, you can turn this into anything that you want. With the sound booths and everything and all the equipment's here. Yeah. Like, this is, honestly, it's a great deal.
Thanks, man. Yeah, and we appreciate your opinion on all of this too, just because, as I said, you're our filmmaker. And, something that I want to ask you along those lines as well is, you mentioned something earlier, which was that you want to kind of keep it as a hobby. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I want you to go further into that, because that's usually not someone's answer with filmmaking. So please go further with why you want to keep filmmaking as a hobby.
So what I've found is, I said it earlier, that when you do something constantly and repetitively, you can get tired of it. I find that my personality is just like that. But the results that I've had within the last, it's been like 10 years since I started making films, along with doing the videography for a wrestling company, which started it all. Both of those things were only like once a month, right? The wrestling, and then the movies they start off to be once a year. And I think you can just dedicate more time and energy to one specific project, and then make sure that that's good. And then that evolved into me making a bunch of short films. It took one short film to be basically my pinnacle, the best one that I ever made. And then it got me to my first feature film. And then from there, it wasn't just on YouTube or my Facebook page or whatever. It went off to distribution. And that took me off into different branches just from that one short film.
Yeah.
And it got me to introduce to people that have helped me get to that point for distribution, getting seen on a larger platform.
Yeah.
And multiple platforms at that.
Nice.
So I think that's why I'm like, well, if I don't make a film this year, let me just go ahead and do what I can on the side, and then I make the next one as big as I can, because I've already reserved all that time and energy to be able to make the next one. And also, it's learning. You know, I'm able to take that time to kind of just soak in and try to think what went right, what went wrong, and I'm able to put all of that, all those notes, those mental notes, into the next project. So that way, I understand. Okay, this isn't going to work. This is what the people want to see, and if I consistently kept doing it all the time, like every single day, I think it would not only burn me out, but I wouldn't have time to just soak it in, to just analyze what's been happening.
That makes complete sense. It's definitely, I feel like, a different take on it, because I feel like so many filmmakers just want to engulf themselves in it, or engulf themselves in something creatively all the time, or whatever. And I think, to your point, I think it goes back to quality over quantity.
Yes.
Right. And I feel like that's where you're getting at, kind of.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, because you can just pay attention to one thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I do like that. I don't know if I can completely resonate.
Yeah.
Personally, just because we have 1,000 things always going on at once.
And that's the thing. You're always thinking, no matter what, you're thinking of the next steps.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So, but I also, the other thing too is I love being able. It's like when you see an actor on screen and then you see them in real life and realize they're completely different people. Mm-hmm. That's what I love about having a full-time job, and then people are like, "Wait, you do that?" And they just don't. You know, they don't believe that you can be like, you know, an accountant somewhere. I'm not an accountant. Yeah. But you can be an accountant somewhere and then have this completely cool hobby that's, you know, accelerating you, you know, for the rest of eternity. Yeah. You know, I think that's what the cool thing is about it too.
Yeah, you're like, you know, Superman, Clark Kent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do wear glasses off camera.
Yeah. Yes. And you're devilishly handsome.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
And I feel like you could lift me over your head. So
Definitely.
I did train for 6 months in professional wrestling, and I have lifted someone about your size above me.
See, I told you.
Do it right now.
Fucking do it.
Do it right now. I would love to see that happen.
That's what you should do. You need a wrestling ring in here.
You could probably do it. You could do a wrestling set in here. There's plenty of space for that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
There is plenty of space for that.
Yeah.
So much space that, to talk a little bit more about our sponsor today, we're in a 2,600 square foot building right now.
We are, Gerry.
Is
what?
It
is everything that you need it to be.
Yes.
Yes.
It's 2 floors. We have 2 floors, 2,600 square foot of studio goodness here at 41st Studios.
That's right. And about a 700 square foot psych wall.
700 square foot psych wall.
To bring all
biggest
of your,
north of Boston.
That's right. To bring all of your dreams to life. To make them a reality. Whether you want a wrestling ring or an ice rink.
Yes.
Let's build an ice rink.
Let's build an ice rink.
Let's build an ice rink. Let's go skating.
So you mentioned that one of your films went on to distribution.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? How that process? Well, A, what the film was, and B, how that process was.
Yeah. So the film was Alternate Ground, and it's the one about alien abduction. Spent, what is it, like about a full calendar year filming it, just on weekends and whenever people were available. And then once I finished it, I went off to Los Angeles. I had a friend, Mark Lund. I actually met him through one of the characters. Her name is Patience McStravick. She introduced me to him. I filmed his movie. And after I was done with mine, I went on to his. At the same time, I was editing both movies. It was a nightmare and 3/4. So, but he was going off to the American film market in Santa Monica, and he invited me over to do that. So I went over with my film. He went over with his, and we had meetings galore with distributors all over the place from every country you can imagine. And it was the most daunting thing that I've ever had to do. Like, I've never had to go in and pitch my movie, which it's hard for me to describe something that I created. Like, I'd rather have somebody else do it, because I just get straight to the point.
Yeah.
It's different than writing. At least I can write everything out, but speaking it is a different story. But so I went there with my poster, a one sheet, and my trailer. And that's all I really had, because I was still kind of editing it, tweaking all the color and all that. Some of the special effects I was still getting, processed. And I went out there, and only one distributor had any interest.
Oh, wow.
So you'd think you'd have, I had I think it was 5 meetings within the 3-day conference.
Yep.
But people go out there and they're so hopeful that somebody's going to see it and pick it up right away. It's just not the case, because you're competing with, there's people like me, and then there's people out in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Bigger budget movies, people with actual stars, and they still have to go through that process if they're still on the independent level.
Interesting.
So going out there was kind of like, it was cool. I was able to see what the process is like and what the cutthroat industry this is.
Yeah.
But it was kind of disheartening, because I thought I had something that was really cool. My first feature film, I'm going out there, it's like your first child.
Yeah.
And then nobody really wanted it. And I didn't actually strike a deal until, I think, when the pandemic happened, if I remember correctly. I had made the contact at that convention in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
And at that point, she told me once it's completed, she'd love to see more. And then I just sent them, once the movie was completed, I sent them the full copy. They reviewed it, and they greenlit me to be distributed.
Nice.
So I think the first platform, by default, everything goes to Amazon at this point, right? But then the first platform after that was Google Play, and then it went on to Tubi. And believe it or not, Tubi is the best for independent filmmakers.
Really?
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. You would think it's Netflix, right? But the way Netflix is modeled for people like us, it's not really the best. Yeah, it'll get it more in front of people. But if you're looking for, the finances of things, Tubi is the best. It pays a lot more than Amazon ever will. Not to knock Amazon. That was my, my buddy at one point. I still buy things, but I don't like to see my movies on Amazon anymore, just because of how low they pay other filmmakers too. Not just me. I don't really care.
Yeah.
But Tubi is doing wonders for the independent film community.
I never knew that. Yeah.
I didn't know that either. Are you comfortable with sharing a little bit more about? You don't have to talk about your numbers specifically, but just how the payment works for this, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand how that even works when it comes to how much it can be made, or even how you get paid, how you get paid from Tubi, how you get paid from Amazon, how you get paid from stuff. I remember a while ago, I actually reached out to you years ago having questions, because I knew that one of your things was on Amazon at the time, or a couple things. But could you explain that a little bit more, and even if you're fine with sharing, just again, not necessarily what you made, but even price comparison, so people can understand.
Yeah. Well, there are some things in the contract that I can't explain on that. But
whatever you can.
When you first reached out to me about Amazon, it was a different process.
Okay.
We could go in just like YouTube and upload, as long as we had the correct file formats, the subtitles, all of that stuff. Everything was professionally done.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. On paper, everything was professionally done. You could go ahead and upload what you wanted onto Amazon Prime. Then they changed that because of the fact that people were just putting out poor quality movies. Everything hit the checkmark boxes as far as Kodaks and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But the quality, I've seen some movies that still had, the warp stabilizer in Premiere Pro.
Yeah. Oh, it still had that effect.
It still
on
had
it.
the red box over it. Actually, it wasn't
Oh,
even.
no way.
Wasn't even red. It was blue. It said click to analyze.
No.
I was like, how did this?
Oh my God.
Yeah. But
Wow.
anyway.
And there's probably also people out there like Gerry that was just covering yourself in like pasta sauce in a bathtub that just uploaded it.
Yeah.
After doing that for 45
So you
seconds.
did see
45
my
minutes.
film.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
I thought you looked familiar when I walked in.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
It was a ghost one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was spoopy.
Yeah.
I was scared.
Again.
I prefer the Alfredo sauce.
Yeah. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So, they changed that, and it's all fine and good. And, they want to create their image of being a professional video streaming platform.
Yeah.
So there are different ways to do it, but I felt the best way was through an actual distributor. So, any standard contract it's a 20-80 split, if my math is correct on that. So, 20 to the distributor, 80 to the filmmaker.
Okay.
And they pay out quarterly.
Okay.
So, and the fact that my film is on different platforms, they break it down for us, like how much it made on Amazon, how much it made on Tubi, how much at Google Play, FilmRise, whatever it is. And I'll tell you, what I made on Amazon while I was self-distributing was literally pennies off of what a distributor can do.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. What comes along with the distributor, though? Like, other than you being able to get onto these platforms, does it come with any type of, P&R or any type of like other press or anything like that with the distribution of it? Like, do they handle anything and help get it out there more?
Well, it does depend on which distributor you go with or who picks you up.
Yeah.
The one specifically that I do, they leave the marketing up to the filmmaker.
Gotcha.
Which is, and it's good because I didn't have to pay a fee to be distributed. And you do have to pay something to the distributors because they're taking a risk on putting this up and doing all the marketing. And if it fails, then, unless you're going with Warner Brothers, but you need to have, Tom Cruise on your movie and all that.
Exactly. Or Gerry.
Oh, Gerry. Yes.
Yeah. Impossible. Yeah.
So, and this is something that I wish film schools would teach is that distribution, because it's the most important thing if you're trying to make this into a career.
Yeah.
I will say that I did make my money back on what little I was able to keep it down. I was in the thousands when I made the movie.
Yeah.
And this was, same thing. Crew, cast, all being unpaid.
Yeah.
But all the money went into like any locations that I might have had to rent. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, my boss was able to give me his house, his summer home in New Hampshire.
Nice.
And we filmed all within the winter, so he wasn't on it.
Nice.
But, all that stuff that you need to feed these people. So I was able to make my money back, and then any of the extra money I put into gear and equipment to kind of just... And also, I'm creating a little account so that way I can fund my next movie without having to go through like Indiegogo or whatever. And that's also going to... I'll be finally able to pay people to actually be on it. It's going to be chump change, but still being able to pay someone for their time. Because a feature film takes a long time.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean that's great, and that's probably really rewarding for you to be able to even be in a position to do that.
Yeah.
At least getting there, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned briefly too that you wish that they would have taught you more about the distribution side in film school. I agree. For those of you who don't know that are listening or watching, Dan and I we both went to the same film school. That's how I know him. And would you say that film school is worth it?
I was asked this earlier. I think in my experience, it was worth it because I went in not knowing much, and then I came out knowing a lot more, and having the connections that I have made it worth it. Yeah. There was to me it was more of a confidence builder. I was able to learn confidence while doing that. Otherwise, because if I could have been doing YouTube University, right?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
But I would never have the push to go out and cast people, to make people, because I'm a shy person. I'm still a shy person. I'm just a better actor right now.
Yes.
So that is what pushed me to be able to go out and make films that are a lot better. So if anything, it just depends on what you want out of it. So for me, it was confidence and being able to go out there and look like I know what I was doing. And apparently it worked.
Nice. I agree to the fact of the connections that you make, I think, are one of the biggest takeaways from film school. And for me, they teach you a lot of the basics and the history. And I feel like something that a lot of YouTube University can't teach you. Right. It's not as can't teach you as hands-on stuff, and you're not in a setting and you're not around people. I don't think that it should necessarily be priced as much as it was priced at.
Yeah.
But we also went to a for-profit school, so
Correct, yeah.
that doesn't exist anymore. And so it is what it is. But yeah, I always love asking that question because I feel like it, with how easily accessible information is now, that it wasn't over a decade ago for us when we started school. I feel like it makes that question so much more relevant, if you will. Because now if like people are thinking of going to film school or not, because again, I mean, I mentioned this before and even on here, where I've seen a lot of people that didn't go to film school that make some great stuff.
Yep.
Right. And then I've seen a lot of people that go to film school that haven't made some great stuff. So I feel like a lot of it comes down to the person as well.
Yes, 100% it does.
And I think like even the drive, I feel like no matter where you go and no matter like what you're doing, you get as much as you allow yourself to get from it, you know? Because think about how many people went to the school that we went to that left without really taking anything in.
Right.
You know, they just, I think, went to say that they went to film school.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that was everybody, but you know, you could probably think of some people.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's like, that's 4 years of your life.
Yeah.
Like that's a chunk of time.
And that goes for any major, really.
Yeah. Any major.
You know?
Yeah. It's not even just film school.
Yeah. And I love looking on Wikipedia pages of famous people and like, yeah, I went into the business finance, right? And then now they're like an actor somewhere. Like,
Yeah.
okay. Well,
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So oh man, I don't know. Again, could go on talking more about film and all that stuff, our film school. Well, so what's next? What's next for you? Where are you, is it more towards the, mass hauntings, or you have another film in the works? What's the next step for you?
So both.
Nice. Cool. Nice.
So,
can you talk on either of those?
Yeah. So Mass Hauntings is currently on a brief hiatus.
Okay.
We have the 2 episodes, and we are planning to be able to go out to different places. I'm trying to outreach. It's called Mass Hauntings because it's based in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
But I want to be able to go off to different places. I've experienced other places in different states. I'd love to be able to go back, make episodes on those.
Yeah.
Also, Owen, at the time we started this, he was 15, 16. Yeah. And, he's a little young.
Yeah.
But, this was the idea of just being able to get it started. Now he's 18, almost 19. And he's got a lot more experience with this, and he's seen what can happen. Yeah. He's also doing more research on himself, so when we go in, we're a lot more prepared.
Nice.
It just won't be me being the smart one. So,
I know how that feels all the time with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
The smart one.
Yeah, he is the smart one. Yeah.
So, yeah, we're definitely going to continue going on that route. And I'm definitely going to keep ghost hunting, whether it's with this show or if it's on my own. I have 2 other members that aren't on the show.
Yep.
Maybe that'll change. Who knows?
Yeah.
But definitely doing that. And then I do have another feature film that is written, budgeted, everything in the works to be able to get produced.
Nice.
I have to find a location, and that I've shot myself in the foot for writing a location that's completely hard to find.
Can we know what the location is, or is that
Yes.
giving something away?
No, it's an abandoned mental hospital.
Oh, okay. There's plenty of those
There's
around
plenty.
here. What do you mean?
Tons of them.
Yeah.
Nobody lets me in.
Oh, really?
I've talked to a few places. There's one that I wrote it on specifically. It's out in Medfield.
Yeah.
I was able to shoot a music video in there. However, because it's a feature film and it requires more time and more people, they decided, no, it's not happening.
Really?
But I also was looking into Tewksbury State Hospital.
Yep.
They're completely open to it. I just got to get permission from the state, and you know how government works.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, just permission from the state. Why wouldn't they let you?
No, it's been about a year, so.
Okay. Well,
I toured it back in January. The people there were amazing. Multiple films have been like, I think Hubie Halloween was the last one before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So
classic.
yeah,
Classic.
yeah,
Hubie
cinema
Halloween.
masterpiece.
Yeah.
Shutter Island. Didn't Shutter Island film some of the
Did they
scenes
film?
there? I think I could be wrong, but I think potentially.
They might have maybe like 2 seconds, but they shot it more at Medfield State Hospital,
Oh,
which is
okay.
where I was.
Maybe that's what I was.
Yeah, where
Yeah.
you were trying to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I will also say that I sometimes get those two movies confused. Hubie Halloween and Shutter Island.
Yeah, same
Sometimes they get
Adam Sandler, Leo DiCaprio.
they
Look
almost identical.
Yeah.
Same type of filmography. Nice. Well, I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see what's next.
Thank you.
And just also so that I know where can people, because I know that you have 2 episodes done. Can people find those anywhere right now?
Yeah, they're just free on YouTube until I
YouTube,
have
yeah.
bigger plans for them.
Yep.
I might try to see if I can get on another platform
Yeah.
through distribution. You know, it's up in the works.
Yeah.
But yep, just YouTube Mass Hauntings, and you'll see cinema and paranormal greatness.
Cinema paranormal greatness. Yeah, well, I hope that people go and check them out. I think that would be awesome. Also, just to see a lot of the things that we clipped, because through this, I have taken small clips in post production and sprinkled a little bit in when you talked about things that are relevant. So if you want to see more of that, go check it out.
Yes. All right, yeah. Before we wrap things up, are there any like tips that you can give anyone at home that's looking to get started into like ghost hunting?
Yeah, I think the first tip, and it's the most important, and I stress this enough, you have to know what you're doing. You need to know what this world is like, and you need to prepare yourself. Because as what happened to me, even though I was prepared and I had the knowledge, it can happen to anybody. And if you're not prepared, it could actually ruin your life. I was fortunate enough to be able to know what to do, identify it, and have somebody available to me to rid me of my attachment. Mm-hmm. But it's very real. I wouldn't recommend people do it without the knowledge of this realm. And that can be anywhere. You can pick up Ghost Hunting for Dummies, cheap plug. I'm not saying who was written by, but any book that teaches you the world of the paranormal and how to safely contact them. I do not recommend Ouija boards.
Yeah.
And why is that?
I do. So, I mean, it's a wooden board. It's a wooden planchette. And it could be micro muscle movements that are moving the planchette. But I do believe that I did have one experience with the Ouija board that, it was actually when I was filming Alternate Grounds, where we came into contact with the demon, Zozo. You're not supposed to say his name, but whatever. He came in through that board, and he made some personal references, or at least, it was making some personal references. And the idea behind that is that it's supposed to replicate a family member on the other side. Mm-hmm. And it was trying to with me, and it freaked me out that day because it was actually, my father has passed away actually like 10 years ago. And when we did this, it was about 5 years ago when we were making this movie. And it was trying to spell out his name, but it couldn't do it fully. And at the time, I was with the cast of Alternate Ground, and they didn't know me personally.
Oh, okay.
So when that name started coming through, and then somebody asked, was it for me? I'm like, I know exactly who was trying to contact me. But then what happens when this demon comes in, it goes from Z to O, back to Z, O, that kind of stuff. Or it can go in a figure 8.
Gotcha.
So that happened. I was like, these guys don't know my father's name. They don't even know about, him passing away. So that convinced me enough, especially when they said, we're going to close out now. And the planchette flew to no. Yeah. With all of our hands coming off of it. So I've seen that shit.
Yeah.
That's actually a story I forgot to mention. But so like stuff like that. That's also just the idea of not going into it without knowing what you're doing, because we did this before I did any research on this field. But on a lighter note, there's equipment that you can use, you can get. And some of them are expensive, some of them are pretty cheap, but the basics you want to get is an EVP recorder, and that could be anything. It could be your phone, it could be your camera. I would recommend getting 2 sources to record, just to have a reference file. If you hear it in one mic and you don't hear it in the next one, like I have, then that's a possible entity talking to you. You do want to get an EMF detector. And this could be just the normal K2 model. There's other models that have, light up screens, and they have noises, temperature detections. That's cool. I have one of those. But you don't need that. You can go as cheap as you want. And definitely get a camera. You need to record all of this. You have to have it documented because everything's hearsay until you can show it to people. And it's building a community where, and I hope it's people that are actually into the field and not just people that are, believers and want to see something. But the more video evidence that we capture, the more we can understand what's going on, because it may be a pseudoscience, but everything is a pseudoscience until you can prove it. And you can't prove it unless you're experimenting. And that's what we're doing out here. And everything else, all the other equipment, that's just extra stuff. Like, I love my SLS camera. It's awesome. I always get something on there. I have a REM pod. It just detects motion. It has an antenna that comes out. It creates a magnetic field around it. If an energy or an entity has enough energy to be able to communicate with us, it can touch that antenna. And I caught a couple cool things. One at the Omni Parker House in Boston.
Yep. Okay.
That's one of the most haunted hotels in Boston.
Interesting.
I was actually at work, and I brought the thing there because I knew of its history. I was in one of the back offices, and I was asking a question. I was recording on my phone. I have this clip too, where I asked whoever was in the office with me to touch the metal antenna, and it went off on command 2 times. 2 times.
Wow. Nice.
And it's one of those things. It's like you have to be about this close for it to go off. You can't be here and have the lights go off and the sounds go off. I also got one at the Hinsdale House in New York, where I set up there was an exorcism that happened in that house. We were in the living room where the exorcism happened, and they have trigger objects, basically items that relate to the entity that's there or something that happened in there. So the trigger objects was a crucifix, the wine cup, and I think it was, I don't remember. I'm not that religious. The Crouton Christ.
Eucharist.
The cracker?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I didn't know there was a real name for that. Nice. The communion wafer. That's what I always knew it as.
The Crouton of Christ.
I like that. I like that a lot.
It's Dane Cook
I think
joke.
that's the official. Yeah, Dane Cook. That's the official term.
Yeah. So we had that on the table. I had the REM pod there, and I had the EMF detector there, just as a assurance. And I was asking whoever was there to come talk to us, come touch that thing. And it went off like crazy. The lights on the REM pod were going off. The sounds were going crazy. And then what proved it to me was the EMF detector was going off right next to it. So, and it was spiking. The one that we were using has different LED lights. It goes from green, yellow to red.
Yep.
This one was going all the way to red.
Nice.
So.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. I love hearing about this stuff.
Yeah. So, the basics are good to have, but the more tools that you have to be able to prove it, the more toys, I call it, then, it's just more things to back you up when you're trying to tell people about this stuff.
Yeah.
What are your takes on spirit boxes?
I love spirit boxes.
Yeah.
There's the
tell people who don't know what a spirit box is.
Yeah, Spirit Box is a band, and they're amazing.
They are.
I actually have a little cool story about Spirit Box, the band. But yes, a Spirit Box is basically it's a radio, a transistor radio, and it goes through AM and FM radio. So you can literally use it just as a radio. But the cool thing about it is it has a function to be able to sweep at a high rate. So it sweeps through all the radio stations, either on FM or AM. And this one, it's cool because it uses the white noise for spirits to come through, and it also can manipulate the radio broadcast to be able to say what the spirits want. Now, some people think that's probably, whatever. You're just hearing radio station DJs coming in and, pareidolia. You're hearing what you want to hear. But the first time I used it was at the Lizzie Borden house in the basement. There was no radio signals coming at all. I was going through 106.7, the major ones that you would hear, but there was no radio reception down in that stone basement at all. So we went through that thing, and then voices were coming through and answering our questions like there was no tomorrow.
Wow.
That's actually when Owen, he was asking questions, and he got touched on the back, but the touch actually was scratches on his back. Again, that could be also because the energy from the entity was using the energy from the radio. But no, spirit boxes, I definitely believe, it's a good tool to have in your toolbox, because that one time in the basement, you're not getting any voices or radio stations coming through, and we're hearing entities talking to us.
Yeah.
That sold it for me. It was my first time ever using it.
Nice.
Well,
Yeah, this is
that was great. I feel like we could keep talking ghost stuff and ghost stories for forever.
I could too.
No, that's really neat. So, well, listen, I appreciate you educating us and just kind of, and everybody listening and watching. I feel like this has been very eye-opening.
Yes.
And I hope it
Third
has.
eye opening.
Third eye.
Third eye opening, yeah.
Nice.
It's a good band name.
Nice. Yeah, that is a good one. Yeah. So we starting a band after this, boys?
Third eye blind, third eye open.
Oh.
Yeah. Ooh.
Hold
There we go. It's the cover band.
It's a cover band. Nice. Well, we're going to go start a band.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, again, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. And before we
Thank you for having me.
wrap up completely, do you want to give a little bit of a plug of where people can find you and where they can find your work?
Yeah. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Unfortunately, also TikTok. But yeah, you can find me at Paraact Entertainment on Facebook, PAE Films on Instagram. TikTok is strictly for ghost hunting, and it's PAE Investigations. And all of it will encompass at least the ghost hunting part. And then the other two are both.
Nice. Well, thank you for that. And I am at the favorite part, one of my favorite parts of this podcast, which is Gerry giving us an outro.
Yes, an outro. I give outros, and they're great.
Yes. It's always a 50-50 shot on if it's going to...
Well,
it's more of an 80-20 back to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna
take us out.
Yeah. Well, before I do that, Liquid Death again sponsor us already.
This is good mango water.
Oh my God, that feels so refreshed.
I think you're going to crush it on the first take now, since you drank Liquid Death.
All right. What's up, bitches? Peace out. All right, you're ready. I fucking nailed it. Well, Dan, thank you so much for being on this episode. And thank you, the audience, for joining us today on this episode of If I Were to Have a Podcast. Make sure to give Dan a follow on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, all the fun stuff. And yeah.
Perfect.
I'm trying to think of how I want to send it off.
I know. Sender. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Make
All right,
sure to check
cool.
them out, whether you're in this realm or the next.
I like that.
Yep.
Yes. I'm going to use that. I'm stealing that. You just give the outro.
Come visit me when you're dead.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. What did you... Yeah. Sure. You know what? I'm just going to start talking, and we'll see how things go. All right.
That's how it works.
This fucking fly, I'm going to burn the studio. There's no longer a sponsor. The studio has been burned down to the ground. Dan, thank you so much for being on this episode. And thank you, the audience, to joining us today for the episode of The Joinings.
Oh, this is the 80%.
Yeah, fuck. I nailed the one before this.
You did. You
fucking
crushed
first take.
Yep.
Now this one's going to take... I'm just so spooked. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. You got this. Go.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to the audience for joining us as well on If I Were to Have a Podcast. Make sure to go give Dan a follow if you want to see hauntings in the real life world and the realms and the nexts of the things and stuff. All right. Put your fucking glasses back on. Get your shit together. Well, Dan, thank you so much for being on this episode. And thank you to the audience for joining us on this episode of If I Were to Have a Podcast. Be sure to go give Dan a follow if you're from this realm or the next. What the fuck did you say? Be sure to give Dan a follow whether you're in this realm or the next. Whether you're in this realm or the next. Where are you going? What are you doing? Stay put.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Dan, thank you for unique New York. Unique New York. This is a fucking dumpster fire today. What is wrong with me right now? I'm not normally this bad.
It's because there's a filmmaker on the set.
It's because
and
I have
I'm a
to
director.
piss. I'm
Yeah,
hungry.
yeah, exactly.
And I'm thirsty, so I'm going to take a sip of our sponsor. That's what it was. All right. Dan, I hope you didn't have plans after this. This is the worst outro that I've done yet to date.
You're not wrong.
No, this is.
You're not
I don't
wrong.
know what's stripping me up.
He's usually better than this. It's like your first time,
I know. It
Yeah.
is like my first time.
or with a new person.
Yeah.
I'm usually better than this, I swear.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for being on today. And to the audience, thank you for joining us as well. I'm going to start that again. Dan, thank you so much for being on today. And to the audience, fuck you. I hope you all die so Dan can talk to you. Dan, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to the audience for joining us on this episode of If I Were to Have a Podcast. Be sure to give Dan a follow, whether you're in this realm or the next. Make sure to hit that like button and also subscribe because we're going to be pumping out videos every single week. And down in the comments, let us know if this has inspired you to get into ghost hunting and share some of your spooky stories. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.
You fucked up.
What do you mean? Where did I fuck up?
You heard that, right?
Yeah.
What do you mean? What did I fuck up? All right, fine. Dan, thank you so much for joining us today. And to the audience, stop laughing!
If I were to have a podcast,